Welcome to this session on investigating how to resolve the disconnect between educators and disruptive students. So, you want to be an educator? Do you see yourself standing in front of a classroom full of students, listening intently to all you have to teach them? Of course you do. But what are you going to do if you have to teach annoying and disruptive students? Let's investigate how best to engage these challenging students.
Caleb, cool it. Okay, everyone, I need you to get your papers out from yesterday. Those need to be on your desk. Caleb, if you do not have yours out, that will be a 0 for this assignment. Caleb, I am not going to play these games with you today. Pick up the paper or go to the office. Pick it up. Caleb, I don't know what your problem is, but you will not be disruptive in my class. Do you understand what I'm saying?
What y'all looking at?
That's it. To the office.
Let's investigate what's going on here and see how you, as future educators, can create an environment that promotes classrooms that build a culture of dialogue, openness, trust, and caring for both the educator and those students that are often found to be disrespectful. Too often, difficult and challenging students and educators find themselves in a struggle for survival in classrooms and are unable to resolve the differences. A challenge even for veteran teachers and administrators is how to respond to those students whose classroom behavior they find disruptive, disrespectful, irritating, maybe annoying, and a serious threat to classroom etiquette. Most educators find these discreetly labeled students to be a threat upon their entering the classroom and arm themselves as best they can in a win-lose conflict of wills. With little imagination for resolving this disconnection with alternative forms of classroom management, teachers and administrators find themselves at a loss to resolve the challenges that a defiant student may display in their school. Reinforcements are quickly called in as the stakes escalate and become harsher as they follow more punitive measures. They long for a sense of possibility that education can offer something that is an antidote to the cynicism, self-indulgence, competition, and despair that is so much a part of today's educational culture. There is a need for revisioning of how to reconnect educators and students to each other and to ignite that mysterious spirit within each of us, which is the source of inspiration, motivation, meaning, forming intimate relationships, and knowing.
What up, Coach? What's up, man? What up, Coach? Doing all right? Sir?
What up, Swaggy T?
What's
You
up,
look extra swaggy today. Can we get some Jolly Ranchers?
It's in my office.
Bet.
They got you, bud. Hey, let me see your socks.
What you got today? Deal.
Hey, I'm Travis Thomaston, principal of Carrollton Junior High School, Carrollton, Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Thomaston, for showing us those cool socks. I am Professor Peterson and teach aspiring new young teachers how to teach. Now, let's look at some real-life examples of how to form those authentic connections that are so important to resolving the disconnection between educators and kids labeled as being at risk.
Hello, future educators. What an exciting time it is to be amongst you all here. I get really excited when I'm in a room of future educators because that is definitely my passion. As I said earlier, my name is Travis Thomaston, principal at Carrollton Junior High School, and kind of what I want to share with you today is what we're looking for in future educators. What I do is I live by the 80-20 rule when I'm looking for future educators. That is 80% of how can you connect with kids, the other 20% is content. If you can connect with kids, the rest of that will take care of itself. All right? 80% of you need to be able to relate to all students. Also, we're looking for individuals that can build authentic relationships. As you saw in the earlier clip, at the end of that clip, I asked Mr. Seidel about his socks. Well, that's his and our hook for hooking our kids. Every day at Carrollton Junior High School, all of our students want to know what type of socks that we have on. As right now, I have on my Big Bird Sesame Street socks, and I've had about 30 conversations today with students about my sock. That's just my hook. Just recently, socks have become such a big deal at Carrollton Junior High School that socks have taken on a whole new meaning. Socks now mean seeking out connections with kids at school. So what's your hook? Is it your sock? Is it your bow tie? What is it that you do to make connections with students? I want to give you a story about how I relate to students and about how passionate I am about changing lives. One student at Carrollton High School that's getting ready to graduate in just 4 weeks, I have a really great story to share. When this student was in the 4th grade, he literally kicked my butt. I mean, he really attacked me physically at school. It was a rainy day, overcast, kind of like it is right here today. He was upset and went in crisis, and I had to chase this student down, and I had to respond to his crisis. When I got the student isolated in an area, I could tell that the student was getting more and more agitated as we talked, and he literally jumped on me. At that moment, I called this kid's parent up to come and meet with me. And typically in a situation like that, when a kid strikes an administrator or any educator, that's going to be their last day at that school for a long time. But because this kid was a 4th grader at the time, and I'm a school administrator, I realized that a 4th grader can't physically hurt me. So when I calmed him down and I called his mom up, I looked at his mom and said, "Ma'am, take him home. It's Friday, I'll see him on Monday." And she looked at me with amazement, and I said, "I love you, man. See you back next week." That wouldn't have happened with anyone else. And now I'm proud that I can say that this student has left me a note on my desk that has been there for 5 years, and it says, "Uncle Travis, I want to thank you for all that you've done for me. Love," and he wrote his name. And just recently I took that note, I wrote him a handwritten note for graduation, I sealed it and sent it to him, and the most touching moment was when he came back to me that next day in tears, thanking me for all that I've done. That's the type of educator that I'm looking for in our school building. One that has compassion, one that has a love for kids. We're not about throwing kids away, we're about changing lives. So if you've already seen in the clip of me during our class change, I have several connections with kids in multiple ways, whether that's a fist bump, whether that's a hug, or just some saying that we have together. That's our thing. The one young man that you saw me give me the fist bump early on in the hallway, that was a kid that I was told to be prepared for. So as soon as I met that kid in the summer, the very first thing I started to do with that kid is fist bump. And then all through the summer we fist bump. And now every day when we pass each other in the hallway, we don't have to say a word, it's fist bump. The twins, we're a dap and a hug. Every time that I see them, we dap and we hug, me and both of the boys. Those girls, for some reason, they say I have swag, so they call me Swaggy T. And then the 2 young ladies that come up every day between class change, they want Jolly Ranchers. So I've spent a lot of money this year on Jolly Ranchers because I know that every time those kids see me in the hallway, they're going to want some candy. So whatever your thing is with every kid, You know, just have that thing with them, because that's how they're going to remember you. That's how they're going to greet you. No kid or adult, rather, as a matter of fact, are going to get past me without having to speak to me within the hallway. And for whatever reason, I often use the word deal at school. So now every time kids and adults see me, we say deal. We sign off every morning, we just say deal. For a while, deal meant nothing. It was just a word. Now, deal embodies everything that we believe in at Carrollton Junior High School. That's dedication, excellence, attitude, and leadership. Another thing that you always see me do is I model all of the things that I preach at school, and I believe that literacy is huge. Literacy is something that you will utilize for the rest of your life. So being able to read is important to me, and I also always want to share that love of reading with my students and my staff members. I'll give you one example of a book that I read that has really changed culture at our school. Before I took the job here as principal, my boss gave me a book entitled It's Your Ship. In that summer, I read that book, and it totally changed my understanding of what true leadership is. It's not top-heavy leadership, but it's leading from the bottom up and getting out of good people's way and let them do their job. That's why I'm hiring you, to do your job. In reading that book, what I learned is from an old U.S. Navy commander. He turned around the worst ship in the fleet into the best in a matter of 1 year by allowing good people to do their job. So, as I was sharing that book with the teachers here at my school, my very first summer, just getting to know everybody and getting a better understanding of the school, one teacher looked at me and said, "You're not an administrator, you're our captain." So at Carrollton Junior High School, for the past 5 years, I've been the captain of this ship, and our motto that everybody at the school understands and knows, it's our ship. Deal.
Who is your principal?
Mrs. Thomason!
Hi, my name is Allison Tarpley, and I am a student of psychology, a graduate student. When I first got involved with the Spark program, I was brand new to my program in my master's, and I received an email. I was curious about the program. It seemed a little different than other mentorships, and I gave Dr. Peterson, the head of it, I gave him a call, and sure enough, I ended up getting the job, and I became his graduate assistant. As time went on, though, I began to see that this wasn't the typical program that you would expect out of a mentorship. I'm not involved in education. I'm not involved in anything where I know I'm learning how to teach. So this was a completely new world for me. The only aspect of teaching that I would be close to is understanding what the student and the teacher are thinking, the psychology of them. So I was coming at it in this program from kind of a different lens. But as the program went on, I started to see that this was, first and foremost, a very different mentorship. They weren't telling the kids what to do. They weren't labeling them like I had seen in my practicum the year before. And they were just loving the kids. And I thought, how interesting. I never thought education could be done in this kind of way. So my initial reaction was, wow, this makes me want to be here. I want to learn how to interact with people, not just students or college students who are going to be professors one day. I want to learn how to interact with just people. And I feel like that's one of the key components of this program. They teach you how to see the person as a person and not just as enough, going on throughout the semester, she kept coming back. And she surprised us all by telling her cosmos, getting up there in front of everybody and telling her life story at the very end. We were all blown away because this shy, timid girl had grown a voice and she wanted to share and she wanted to interact with people. And I think that's the most important thing, is people grow at their own paces. And that's one of the important things that I learned out of this program, is listening to the other person's needs. That is so crucial and so important, because if you don't listen to them, how will they ever listen to you? So now that I'm nearing the end of my 2 years in the program, I've had the opportunity to absorb all the information of how to love people, essentially, not in the sense of a methodology, do this first, do this second, but it's principles, seeing them as sacred, seeing them as a non-label. Because if you see them as a label, you're limiting them. A lot of these kids have been in, they've been in, very compromising situations. We don't know what they come in for, but most of them are on probation. They've done things like misdemeanors, or they've been all the way up to being incarcerated. So not seeing them as a label is so crucial. And I also got the chance to apply that through this girl. And as I'm nearing the end of these 2 years, I'm just trying to understand this situation in a holistic sense. And it really is about the principle of the values that we learn, seeing them as sacred, not telling them what to do. We don't take an authoritative stance. They're used to people telling them what to do. They're used to being forced to sit in a mold, being molded by society. In this program, they were free to be whoever they wanted to be. Sometimes they'd do things and, only one person was allowed to get onto them, but the rest of us, we just loved them. People make mistakes, and I think that's something that we forget a lot of times. We just don't get caught for it. That was something somebody told me in the program, and I thought, how powerful. We all mess up in life. Some of us get caught for it, some of us don't. And if we label those who do get caught for it and see them as others, see them as bad, how is that any different than us getting caught for it? So now the question that we're left with is, how do we cultivate this safe environment for kids to change? Well, if we rely on the behavioralist models that focus on the action of the kid and changing them from the outside, the environment as changing them, it's not going to work. And that's the thing that we've found. Change doesn't come from looking at their behavior and trying to stop or encourage certain behaviors. The system of punishment and rewards only works temporarily. It doesn't work long term. So, if we look at change as something that we don't want from them, but we want for them, now we're talking about an inner struggle, an inner change. And this is something that we can cultivate by seeing them as sacred, by creating a safe environment for them to grow and for them to want to be the best person that they can be. As educators, this is crucial in the education world, in their school environments. If they feel safe and if they feel like they can grow at their own accord, at their own pace, that's all they want from you as their teacher.
Something that made me feel really connected to my favorite teacher was when we were watching a movie and he cried along with us to the ending. I think it really just showed vulnerability to the students, and it really made me love the class.
One thing that really made me feel connected to my high school math teacher is that after she finished her lesson, she would take time to help students that needed help. She would sit down with them and help them figure out the problems if they needed help.
What she did was she would, take time to tell you something, even if it's not something you wanted to hear. She would tell you, and even though you didn't think about it at that time, looking back, you would realize that that was something you needed to hear at that time.
So when I was a junior in high school, I had I had her my freshman year, and I had her all throughout high school. I had a Spanish teacher, and she represented all the qualities of a quality educator that I believe that you should have. She had patience. She cared about her students. She had compassion and sympathy, and you could tell she had passion for her job, and you can just feel her energy and her vibe, and it just carried over to her students, and it made her class very enjoyable, and it actually made me want to become an educator myself.
Right. Throughout school, I always struggled in math and would get the lowest grades. And my sophomore year of high school, I had a geometry teacher that would take the extra time to help me learn the geometry better and really cared about me and believed in me and told me that I could do it. And I ended up getting an A into her class. Not only did she help me academically, but I was also acting out a lot my sophomore year, and she cared about me as a person and my life outside of school as well.
To summarize our presentation, we have examined examples of how current educators are investigating how best to reconcile the disconnect. You have heard educators sharing real-life examples of how they are successfully addressing the disconnection in ways that work from the inside out. While traditional approaches often focus on trying to control attitudes and behaviors by offering rewards or threatening punishment, which too often make the disconnection worse. We are offering you another approach that transform relationships from the inside out. This approach requires us to be both humble and bold. Humbled due to the awesome opportunities and responsibilities that truly give many disconnected students hope that they can reconnect to their passions and goals, and bold because it requires us to not give up on annoying students, to be real, direct, and vulnerable with them. Someday, when you enter your first classroom as a new teacher, we hope that you will find the joy in reconciling the disconnection in youth that are too often ignored, discarded, and abandoned by too many educators. Thank you for participating in this presentation. And if you have any questions or comments, we would like to hear them at this time. Thank you.